Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, the gentleman.
All right, good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was talking to the Fed chair today in what was probably missed by, I don't know, probably every progressive not caring about economics. And what she did was pretty masterful if you care about economics. If you care about full employment, if you care about implementing incredibly bold, progressive programs like a Green New Deal, getting rid of student debt, things like that. These things will matter to you if that is important to you. But many people probably miss this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an opportunity to listen to the Fed chair and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez today. Let's discuss it.
Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, the gentlewoman from New York, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Powell, for coming in today. The Federal Reserve's mandate, one of their mandates is to maintain price stability and maximum employment. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And a lot of folks would interpret that as meaning to aim for the lowest unemployment rate possible without runaway inflation, correct?
Yes, generally.
So I kind of wanted to dig in today with you a little bit about this relationship between unemployment rates and inflation. In early 2014, the Federal Reserve believed that the long-run unemployment rate was around 5.4%. In early 2018, it was estimated that this was now around 4.5%. Now the estimate is around 4.2%. What is the current unemployment rate today?
3.7%.
3.7%. So what we had previously thought of, perhaps as far back as 2014, as a long-run unemployment rate is around 5.4%. What we're currently experiencing is 3.7, lower than that estimate. But unemployment has fallen about 3 full points since 2014. But inflation is no higher today than it was 5 years ago. Given these facts, do you think it's possible that the Fed's estimates of the lowest sustainable unemployment rate may have been too high?
Absolutely.
So we overshot in what our long-run unemployment rate is.
I think we've learned, as you pointed out, I think we've learned that you can't identify, this is something you can't identify directly. I think we've learned that it's lower than we thought, substantially lower than we thought in the past.
And I've been seeing lately that economists are increasingly worried that the idea of a Phillips curve that links unemployment and inflation is no longer describing what is happening in today's economy. Have you been considering on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, very much so. We spend a great deal of time on that. The connection between slack in the economy, or the level of unemployment, and inflation was very strong if you go back 50 years, and it's gotten weaker and weaker and weaker to the point where it's a faint heartbeat that you can hear now. It's still there. You can see it at state level data and things like that. But I think we really have learned, though, that the economy can sustain much lower unemployment than we thought without troubling levels of inflation. And I think I would look at today's level of unemployment as well within the range of potential estimates, of plausible estimates of what the natural rate of unemployment is.
So why do we think that we're seeing this decoupling in a relationship that we had seen in the economy decades ago?
One reason is just that inflation expectations are so settled and that's what we think drives inflation. That, for example, when unemployment went way up, you didn't see inflation go down.
Right.
And you don't see inflation reacting to unemployment the way it has because inflation just seems to be very anchored.
Do you think that that could have implications in terms of policy making? That there's perhaps room for increased tolerance of policies that have historically been thought to drive inflation or increase inflation. You know, one of the arguments about minimum wage or other policies that directly target middle-class Americans is that they could drive inflation. Do you think that decoupling is something that we should consider in modern policy considerations?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't want to get into the minimum wage discussion directly, but I think we've learned that inflation, that really downward pressure on inflation around the globe and here is stronger than we had thought. You see countries all over the world not getting, being below their inflation targets, whereas when I was young, they were always above, now they're always below. And the United States has done better than other countries, but we're still below our target.
And
folks, I think it's kind of interesting, don't you? Not only did she nail this interview, not only did she nail every point, but how many times have you heard progressives even saying really, 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 really dumb stuff about inflation? About printing money, about things about unemployment, and oh my God, what about inflation? You heard him say that even when unemployment was through the roof, it didn't impact inflation. And now with employment so low, it once again hasn't dented inflation. Why do you suppose people continue to talk about printing money and inflation and unemployment and inflation? Why do you think they keep pushing that? See, so much of the economy is no longer tethered to just basic employee earnings and stuff. Much of the economy now has been financialized, where the average wage earner and things like that aren't even touching the economy. There is no relationship to be had. The Phillips curve, which has been used to keep people suffering forever, has been proven to be a bunch of bullshit. Doesn't exist. It's not even worthy of consideration. And let's be fair, Jerome Powell, this guy is not what you would call a lefty. He is a monetarist. He is a guy, basically, who you would normally see saying something different than this. But there he was, with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the freshman congresswoman, saying what none of the 40-year people were able to say, saying what none of these experienced corporate Democrats have ever said, the people that are supposedly fighting for labor. But there she was, just nailing, and the sweet as could be, direct as could be, and she had Powell eaten out of her hand. Not only did you hear that NAIRU, which has been the natural rate of inflation, etc., as it pertains to unemployment, but you also saw the destruction of the Phillips curve. Now, not lost on this was one of Donald Trump's senior dudes, Larry Kudlow. So Miss AOC kind of nailed that. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez earns praise from Trump's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. So let's go ahead and read this. This is in Newsweek. And it says, President Donald Trump's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, had high praise for progressive Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Thursday, saying she kind of nailed a question she asked Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell during his testimony in Congress this week. Kudlow, a financial analyst who serves as the director of Trump's National Economic Council, lauded Ocasio-Cortez during a Fox News segment, saying he gave her high marks for pressing Powell over the Phillips curve theory, which posits that there is a trade-off between low prices and low unemployment. During the hearing, Ocasio-Cortez pointed out that many economists have grown concerned that this is no longer describing what is happening in today's economy. Now, I want you to understand something. For all the people out there who say, oh, I don't care about economics, it's a silly old thing white people care about or whatever. First of all, we have an incredible Latina woman striving, punching, doing everything that all these pale white folks never bothered doing, pointing out what bullshit NAIRU is and the Phillips curve is. And Kudlow, to his credit, acknowledged across the aisle that she was right on the money. Now, I wonder why so many AOC fans don't understand or even try to understand modern monetary theory. I don't understand why so many Bernie Sanders fans don't try to understand modern monetary theory. But you're watching them school all of Congress, all of the Senate. You're watching them school the Federal Reserve. You're watching them school everyone. Because the MMT people are the only ones in the room that get it. Folks, I didn't stutter there. They are literally the only ones in the room that get it. All your favorite alternative media, they're going to skip this. Why is that? Because they don't get it. Why don't they get it? Because they don't want to expose the fact that they don't understand. So they'll avoid this. But this is huge. It's got huge implications for the progressive agenda. It's got huge implications on our lives. Many of the policies that were put forward kept us unemployed. And if you've ever been unemployed, let me assure you, it is a miserable place. And digging out after missing wages for 6-8 months is a son of a bitch. So this is a really, really big deal. She's saying many policies that progressives have put forward have often been met with worthless statements of, oh, it'll cause inflation. But it's quite clear that that is not true. Do you see what she did? How masterful she was, how genius she was? Why wouldn't progressives that claim to want these things follow in her footsteps? Why would they ignore this? I want you to think about what I'm saying. Because our movement is handicapped severely by its ineptitude at economics, by its unwillingness to learn, by clustering around other people that are ignorant and finding solace in ignorance in joint ceremonies of praise and worship over ignorance. There is no esteemable trait in ignorance. There's nothing esteemable about it. She right there went and did for us what nobody's been willing to do for us before. In front of the world. She is systematically breaking down the lies that the orthodox economics profession has hoisted on each of our lives. Now, the rest of this, let's go. The observation appeared to impress Kudlow. I want to note in the hearings yesterday with Fed Chairman Jay Powell, it was Miss AOC asked him about the Phillips curve. Why is rising growth and unemployment and low unemployment bad? Why does that cause inflation and higher interest rates? He remarked Thursday. And Jay Powell said, well, you're right. That thing hasn't worked in decades. And yet, look, It hasn't worked in decades yet. Look how many progressives, people that claim to want a Green New Deal, people that claim to want Medicare for all, people who claim to want to get rid of student debt, people who claim to want a federal job guarantee, people who claim to want expanded Social Security, people that claim to want to fix inequality in America, holding on to these lies that even this exchange right here proves beyond the shadow of a doubt is incorrect and has been harming millions of people. This false belief that we've got to force unemployment on America to keep inflation low. Do you know how vital this is? This is absolutely critical to having a caring economy, to having a shared economy, to providing prosperity for the 99%. Do you know how many progressives fight us every step along the way as we present these truths? Let's keep going. Well, you're right. That thing hasn't worked in decades. Now, I've got to give her high marks on that. She got that out of chairman, he asserted. By the way, that is my position. That has been the president's position. But the Trump administration official continued, strong growth doesn't cause higher inflation and interest rates. Looks like the Fed is going to cut their rates. Miss AOC kind of nailed that, Kudlow told Fox News, adding that he hoped to meet Ocasio-Cortez, who represents New York, and discuss supply-side economics in the near future. You know, supply-side economics is absolutely ridiculous in and of itself. The demand has to be there, which means everyone needs to have a stake in the game. The trickle-down that we've experienced in the past has always been ensuring the wealthy have money and hoping they bequeath it to us. But MMT proves we don't need the rich. MMT proves we can have nice things without the rich. MMT proves that money doesn't grow on rich people. It grows on the currency-issuing sovereign federal government. That's where it grows. That's where it spawns. That's where it dies. Let's keep going. While the first-term congresswoman who has been regularly criticized by wingnut right-wing politicians and pundits and Kudlow may agree in their assessment that the Phillips curve theory does not work, their views diverge greatly on numerous other aspects of economic policy. Now, the rest of this is almost irrelevant. I'm not even going to bother reading it. You can look at it. I just wanted to make sure you understood the impacts of that. Because ultimately, when you understand, not only does money growth not create inflation, but where there's demand and there isn't supply to meet demand, that's when you get inflation. It's got nothing to do with the amount of money in circulation. Let's just put that one to bed, shall we? John Harvey empirically wrote, money growth does not cause inflation. Professor from TCU, post-Keynesian, MMT, friendly, great guy we've had on here before. Look it up. It's in Forbes. Money growth does not cause inflation. And it appears that having to keep a bunch of people suffering unemployed doesn't help either. So we can look for full employment now, can't we? That would be my take on it. That's the case to be made for the counter-cyclical automatic stabilizer and equality creator and employment floor creator, the federal job guarantee. which, by the way, for those keeping score, is a key component of the Green New Deal. Folks, economics is simply the most important subject out there. And sadly, you're probably needing toothpicks to keep your eyes open to hear about this most important thing. You probably don't care. You probably want to go hear who's screwing who and, what pedophile is going on an airplane or what this or what that. I'm sure all that is riveting. And you want to cheer them on when they go catch the bad guys. But as for real policy that impacts all of our lives, there's nothing more important than economics. And today, you learned firsthand the Phillips curve is bullshit, and NAIRU is just government-imposed misery. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. Have a great day, everyone. I'm out.